Good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble announcer for today, or podcast person, or whatever. I'm Mr. David Null, also known as Mr. Dave, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite Creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Which sort of blessings from the universe? Well, as I found this gentleman um, recently, whose name is Rupert Sheldrake. I had to write it down so I could repeat it enough times to remember, because old age will make you forget stuff. Um, and this particular video on morphic resonance and sort of what it basically means. And for those of you who have hung around me at all, I've been talking about, you know, um, the cosmic goo that's all around us, and that is that quantum field, which is us. The Earth has its own quantum field, and we're all connected together in this quantum field. Well, this quantum field, as Mr. Rupert discusses, and many other people, it has been described as morphic resonance. And so let me give a couple of examples of what morphic resonance is, and then I want to discuss how I know that this is true. Because in my 72 years of observing humanity, I have seen morphic resonance in action, right? So I was like, well, how do you prove it? Well, there's an example. Well, what about some? Well, there's an example over there. And what about, well, there's an example. And what about, oh, yeah, what about that? Hey, Miss Chloe, I can't believe that you're here. But howdy. And it's very early in the morning, and I realized that I just missed a 4:20 for for the Central Time Zone. So let me catch that up. But so the more I woke up not too long ago, and so all of a sudden I just happened to show up right um, in the middle of the night. Actually, it's past the middle of the night, which in a way sort of proves the morphic resonance of things. Well, what in the devil is it? Well, they're suggesting, like, for example, the 100th monkey, for example, would be a morphic resonance. So it took 100 monkeys to figure out that their fruit tasted better if they washed it off first and then ate it, instead of trying to eat the bugs and leaves and nastiness and dirt off of it. It took 100 monkeys of washing off coconuts or something. No, actually, I think they would took 100 monkeys in the scenario to break this coconut over a rock and crack it open to get the goodies on the inside without having to break it and chew it and all this other stuff. So anyway, but so in that, after that 100th monkey learned it, that all the other monkeys knew how to do it, and a lot of them learned how to do it without actually watching that 100th monkey do it. So how did the other monkeys learn how to do it? and it was learned through this morphic resonance, which is that all monkeys have this little tuned in frequency in the quantum. And so when the one monkey learned it, all the other monkeys in the, you know, all over the place said, wait a minute, I just learned something, you know, and it's like a monkey over there and a monkey over here. And they were like, wait, I can bounce this thing over a rock and crack it open. How interesting. And then all the other monkeys go, whoo, look at this. We all learned something today. So, but they didn't have to watch the original monkey to do it. But since that point in time, all the other monkeys knew how to crack it over a rock. Same thing with birds. Different birds learn different things. Now, for example, right outside my window, I have the perfect example. Now, I've been feeding the cats outside my window in a steel, a galvanized pan that you get at Tractor Supply, and you use it for all kinds of things. For feeding up and doing stuff, and it's galvanized, so it weathers well. So I've been feeding the cats outside, dumping their dried food out there. Tonight it rained in the cat's food and blowed it all up to this ugly looking stuff. But the turtles love it. And also, what I've learned over the last few years of watching out the window here is that first it started out as a blue jay. The blue jay flew in and saw the food in this pan, right? Looked around right outside, up, landed on the line out here, landed on now um, the tree that's growing right out here outside the house, which is like 3-4 years old. So it lands on this limb that's low, and it started out landing on the line that goes from the house to the shed, right? And so it would land up there, and I've used it for a clothesline. Land up there and sit and look down. The cat's not there. Fly down and get food out of the cat's dish, and then fly up and fly away. So, it was nothing for me to see this blue jay over across the yard fly into the area and land on a tree limb over there, survey the yard to see what was going on, then take the flight over to the line, check it out and see where the cats were, because a lot of times they go up the hill and they're up there for a while. So it leaves this area clear of cats. So they've learned the patterns of where the cats are. They've learned how, I say they because I'm getting ahead of myself. But so the blue jay comes in now, lands on this on the mulberry tree, and gets on the lower limb because it's closer, but still away from the cats. Surveys the area and down and gets his food and then flies off. Okay. 3 years ago, right? Last year, towards the end of the year, a cardinal is seen coming in and going down and getting food out of the dish late last summer. All right. So, wait a minute. So, the cardinals, now I'm curious about this morphic resonance. Now, did the cardinal learn how to go down and get food out of the food dish by the resonance, or did the cardinal learn it by simply watching the blue jay, or both? Resonance, I saw that. So so I think it was, as I'm talking about this now, I think it was a bit of both. I think it was sort of the communication in bird language. Like, I used to put bird feed out in a couple of feeders out there. And over the years, I'd put the feed out and the seed feed, for the wild bird seed. and something would happen. It would rain. I'd have to dump it out, and then I'd put more in. And so I wasted a lot of bird seed. So I just kind of quit that. And then when I did back surgery, couldn't lift things, I declined even worse. But I've noticed that by having the food out there in the tray, that the birds will come down and feed out of it, at least the blue jay, right? So now I'm seeing there's now the male cardinals coming down and getting food regular, not just once in a while, but there's the blue jay comes in, and then and then the cardinal. So it's like and I've been feeding out there for years. Okay, so it's only been within the last couple of years that the blue jay said, let me try this. Flew down, got the food out of the dish, and then said, this is pretty easy way to get food, right? So the blue jay started the trend, and now the male cardinal has come in, and now the female cardinal is coming in to get food. Now, out of the same dish, I have seen a box turtle eat the smaller crumbly pieces. The cats will chew on them, and there'll be little pieces that come off, right? And so there's a box turtle or two or three that are in my yard and in this area, and comes up and feeds out of the same dish. So box turtles are eating the bits and pieces that the cats leave behind. So I'm feeding all kinds of critters, and now that's just those. That's not counting the worms that will go under this dish, that love to live under it. So setting up, you say, well, what is that? I think that setting up this place to eat for the critters has set up a resonance of sorts. Like, ooh, there's the pan, there's where food is. Regardless of whether or not you're a worm, which likes to crawl under it for whatever reason, to all the little bugs that like to run under it as well because it's out there, to the food that I put in it, and then other bugs like to crawl in there and eat crumbles too, to the cats eating it, to um, the possum who comes in from the shed and from the woods who eats out of the dish, and to the birds who eat out of the dish, to the turtles who eat from. They have I have seen them, stick their neck in there and get the food out. So they all eat out of the dish somehow. Now, I think that it might be that in my area here in the yard, these critters have set up a resonance. Okay. There is this resonance of there's food over yonder, and the old guy puts food in it. The animal kingdom connected. I think so. I really do. Because I've been watching it for years, right? And it took years for the blue jay to figure out that there was food down there. Now all the other critters have been setting up, like, the possum coming in and eating out of the dish, and all the other little tiny critters, and the box turtles have been eating out of it for a long time. So now here's the thing. Was the box turtle eaten out of the dish one day, because I saw it? Was the box turtle eaten out of the dish when the cats weren't around, because it was easier for him to get in there? And the bird saw the box turtle eaten out of the dish. And the box turtle was like, hey, man, it's cool. Ain't nobody around. Ain't no cats. Come on down. Get you something and, take it back to the nest or whatever. So then the blue jay said, thank you, Mr. Turtle, and came down and tried some of that cat food and said, huh, this Purina cat dog food ain't too bad, So been coming back to for dinner ever since. So now that's just in the animal kingdom. That's just right here. So the idea of the morphic resonance is that basically other blue jays would learn how to go down and eat out of a cat's bowl, and that all cardinals would now learn how to eat cat food or dog food, or that all birds would learn how to eat cat food, dog food. You know what I mean? So in that, but I think that what the bird learned and the birds have learned is that, there are different types of food out there now, and that they need to explore that, and that information is in the realm of morphic resonance for the animal kingdom, not just for the birds and not just for but I mean, in this area, in my in my 18-acre domain, in this area of my yard, more specifically, the animals that live here, including me, because I put the food out, I'm the one that moves the pan around. I'm the one that dumps it out when there's rainwater in it. I'm the one that supplies it. I begin the resonance by putting food in the dish, right? So I start it, if you will. Now that's just that, all right. But now I'm going on much further. So Mr. Rupert is talking about that, as I have discussed, if we have discussed, doing meditation. So if enough people meditate on a particular item or subject or whatever, um, can they affect an outcome, right? And so there's proof that at certain times with certain people that they have measured an outcome. All right. A bunch of people meditated and somebody got healed. A bunch of other people meditated and changed the crime rate in a certain area or something. A bunch, so that is the morphic resonance in action, if you will. So for me, as we've been talking about, and Miss Chloe can attest to this, I've been talking about the quantum field, and that the things that we do, for me doing that's what prompted me to do this video at this time of the morning, because putting out this energy into the quantum field, because I know this subject is already out there. So I'm reacting to the subject of the morphic field because I've not heard this term before. But it is something, I've been talking about the quantum and how, the quantum entanglement is absolutely real, and how we can connect with one another. How come, Chloe's here in the middle of the night that she was going to know I was going to come on at this time? That's cosmic resonance. That's morphic resonance. It's like, wait, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I wonder if Chloe's up. I wonder if anybody's out there. And then I was thinking, it doesn't matter, because with the topic of morphic resonance, I wish to put this topic into the quantum field, into the quantum, into the morphic field, right? And I want to be able to speak this in a way that sets up a resonance, therefore a morphic resonance, right? I want to speak it out there in a positive way. And there's a lot of stuff that's in the morphic field, in the resonance of things, right? In the quantum, all right? So it's the quantum library, it's the Akashic record, it's all of the above, because anything that has been done ever is recorded in the quantum field, in the morphic resonance of the planet Earth, in the morphic resonance of Jupiter, in the morphic resonance of Mars. For, you know what I mean? So for each thing, and then there is the collective, the morphic resonance of the solar system, right? So here we are on Earth, and so humans get together at a ball game, hooray, and they all stand up and cheer, or they do the wave. And sometimes if you're looking at the wave from a distance, it's uncanny how all these thousands of people can, get and do this wave, without any practice. You know what I mean? And so there are these large things that happen. How do people do that? They get this feeling, and we're going to do the wave. Okay, and where am I sitting? And logistically, they figure out, well, okay, we're going to get up, and they're going to sit down, and we're going to create this way. What? Who taught them how to do that? Thousands of people at a ball game, right? So that is a perfect example of a morphic resonance. Nah, Dave, that can't happen. No. Why? Because all of these people are thinking the same thing at the same time and react to that same thing at the same time. We're going to create the wave. Okay, where am I sitting? How am I going to be affected? When do I stand up? When do I sit down? And when do we do our hands, or whatever they're doing to create the wave, right? And so it's like sometimes it looks so good, you have to think they must have practiced this, right? They must have practiced this. All these thousands of people, they must have practiced this. Hey, John, how are you? I knew somebody would be up this morning. But so that is morphic resonance. And all of the people in the stands who wish to do the wave, so in their brains, they're setting it up in the quantum. We all want to do the wave. We all are committed, all these thousands, we're committed to doing this. Okay. We know about how to do it. We're going to watch the cheerleaders, and they're going to start us off and everything. And so that's the thought process that starts the quantum. And then there's then it gets started physically, standing up, sitting down, waving, whatever. And that is the resonance part of it. Everybody's feeling it. You know what I mean? It's like, woo, we can feel it. I'm a quantum mechanic. Yeah. How big is your toolbox? Do you have any torque wrenches in there, buddy? Because we got to torque some of these ideas, tweak them. But speaking of tweaking, so I didn't like this when I said it was a 20. So, but anyway, I started this podcast on a 20, and it's been 24 minutes. So 2020. Do we need an excuse? No. Cosmic resonance. 50 years of tool payments. Yeah. Yeah. And for example, one might laugh or you might giggle, Chloe, is that, the idea of 420. Now, I'm not sure when it started, but I know it's been around for a long time, right? And I have been a participant of 420 for a long time, as I'm 72 and a half years old now. So yeah, you're gonna be hearing this till my birthday, just because I can. But anyway, no, it's because old age, wisdom comes with it, right? And it's supposed to come with whiskers. It's said um, that with whiskers, um, what's Hitler's birthday today? Oh, please, no, really? But that long whiskers entangle with the quantum like antennas, as such as long hair with certain native tribes, are that I will say in indigenous peoples. 420. Oh, you mean for the uh, you mean April 20th? Okay, I thought the same thing. Then realized what it goes out so quick. I realized it must be I thought today at first. But so but with that idea, so somebody looks at the clock and they go, it's 4 o'clock. 20 minutes later, come on, guys, I'm going to get ready. It's 4 o'clock, it's time to punch out, several jobs I've had over the years, you clock out 4 o'clock, 7 to 4, 7 to 3:30, 7 to 4, 8 to 4, So anyway, you're clocking out. And of course, you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy you a beer and put it twixt your legs on the way to the house, And in the old days, it was wrapped in a paper sack to keep it cold. We didn't know that back then. We thought it was just to keep the water from getting on your drawers so you didn't look like you peed yourself. But in that, at the same time, all around America, on the East Coast at that certain time, thousands of people, mostly men, were doing this same ritual every day. Stop at the store, get them a beer, do a thing, and by 4:20, it was time for them to light one up, because they weren't going to light one before they got to the store, because then they smell like, stuff. And they knew that if they got the beer first, they could, they could chug it in between, coughing spells with the 420. So it all made sense. And that's why it got to be about that time after 4 o'clock, per se. And it makes sense, made sense to me, made sense to a bunch of our friends, because we timed it, So, but in that 420 was a resonance when it first became a thing. And hey, Lucky, what you doing? Shouldn't y'all be sleeping? Yeah, well, I keep getting my time turned around. And it was up like all night, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And I slept most of Wednesday. It was, and today was a rain day. Then that's sort of my excuse, Chloe. And I was like, well, I'm going to lay down. And I was like, I don't feel like laying down. And the resident says, Hawkeye, yep, there was a in the quantum, But to that point, there have been times, and Chloe knows this because it happened. I was like, I got on here one morning, man, and I was doing the old number and sleep in my eyes, and it was like Chloe's like, I am so glad you came on, and I was like, oh yeah, I take naps. I never know. That's true, John. Me too. And sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm wide awake, and then I ain't. you know. Yeah, you were looking for me, all right, Chloe. And so, but all of a sudden, depending on where you're at, like here, it's it's 5 o'clock Central Time. So early, but I was listening. It wasn't much to watch, but I'm listening to this gentleman discuss the morphic resonance and how whole classes, like how horses run and know where to go, and how fish swim in schools and do the thing, and how birds fly in the sky and they all do this, can fly together, and how and here's something that just as I'm listening to this guy, and how someone's can affect a crowd of people with just a thought or an action. Now, as a carny, I have been many, 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 many years, um, many, many days in a row, when I on the road, and on the weekends especially. There was a phenomenon that happened. So the phenomena that happened was with the crowds. Okay, the crowds that come on to the lot, and the first thing that would happen is that the young people, the children, and the mothers, and a lot of grandmothers would come out at that time, um, to put the kids on the rides and so forth. And, I used to run the kid rides back when I was, 12 and 13, 14 years old. And then I learned how to buck tubs, and then I sort of slid over to the octopus, and then I slid over to the Rocco plane, and then I slid over the tilt-a-whirl. But um, it was such that the younger people that came out and got to ride the rides, and then as it got later towards 9 o'clock, the crowd changed, and you didn't really notice it until there weren't any kids, and the crowd had changed to a 95% adults. There were a few kids hanging around with mommy or daddy or whatever, or grandma. And so as 9 o'clock turned into 10 o'clock, the crowd started to move, especially on a Friday night, Saturday night. Excuse me, and sometimes on a Thursday night, on a kids' night, right? But this is after the kids have mostly, disappeared somehow, and the crowd has changed. Visibly, the crowd has changed. And standing up on the Rocco plane, you're up above everybody and you can see the crowd. So all of a sudden the crowd starts to undulate. It starts to move, the whole crowd. And they start to move in a direction. Now tonight, as I was thinking about this and this undulating thing that looked like a great big snake, really, giant, reptile type thing, this movement would start moving all the way around. There's center joints and stuff. And then one side of the midway is all of the joints and stuff. And then you come to around to the end, and there's the fun house or something, and then there's the Rocco plane, and you come around, there's a tilt-a-whirl, and then you get to the kiddie rides, and then you go down to the other end, and there's the scrambler and something else, and then there's the joints again. So this crowd starts moving, the whole crowd. You can't cut across the crowd. So as somebody that's like, the only place we could go to the toilet was to go behind the trailers, right? And if you're on the opposite side of the midway of the, that you have to cross through the center joints and then try to get through the crowd, sneaky, 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 and and get behind the trailer, right? But the whole crowd, depending on how big the lot is, um, for the carnival, you know, there are probably 2 or 3 thousand people at least moving in this direction. Now, tonight I was thinking, I wonder how it got started. How did the snake get started? As I'm listening to this guy, and he's like, one person can, you know, as- affect a whole group of people, thousands of people in a large group setting at a carnival or a fair. And I noticed at the fair too, the fairs that I went to, I've noticed the same type of behavior. So here's what I think, and it's that when people come in to the Midway, a lot of people want to go play the joints. They want to go see what all of the joints are, what all the games are, and what kind of prizes are there, and all that kind of thing. And they will drag the little kids along with them, and but then they'll end up at the at the kiddie rides. So it doesn't matter when the children are out on the Midway because there aren't that many adults, right? So there's no motion around the Midway. It's just random people going here and back and forth. Easy to get around. But as the evening changes, the behavior is still the same. People come in and they want to go see what the games are all about before they ride the rides, right? Or they want to get some popcorn, they want to do some thing, they want to do a little gambling. Now, some of the girls and things, they want to get the tickets and ride right away. But, but as they go down the games from one game to another game to another game, that's a slow progress, right? But as the people move from game to game, and as other people come in and stand behind them, then they move to the next game because they're just looking in the background going, oh, I wonder what that's going on. And so by the time things get going, there's the first group that want to play. There's the second group that's watching them play. There's the third group behind them that's just curious as to what's going on. So there's layers of this, but they all go towards the end of the Midway. They all end up going in the same direction. And that's how the crowd gets started in going all the way around. And I mean, I've been on some Midways. Uh, you're number one. Oh, because we love you. But so only a few people start the motion because otherwise the people are there just moving around randomly. Okay. I mean, that listening to a guy talking about how you put some a certain radioactive thing in a certain type of vessel and you put some other kind of chemical in there and it starts bouncing around inside this container. And the faster it bounces around, the hotter it gets. And that's how you can get cheap nuclear. Okay. But in a way, this is sort of the same thing in that there was a humongous amount of energy in how this crowd moves around in this circle. I was in this one town years ago, Marshall High School down around Plant City, and all black folk, and when it started moving, it it was dangerous. You had to go with the flow, especially a white boy in the middle of a 98% black situation. But it was still, whether I was in there or not, watching the force and the pace of how fast the people were walking. And it was almost like it got to be a race. And then in some southern towns around here during the summertime where it's hot, people don't want to walk too fast. and so it's more of a trudge. It's more relaxed, like the South can be. So, but only a few people start the motion of this thing, but thousands of people go along with it all of a sudden. I'd be standing up on the Rocco Plain bucking tubs, and people getting in and blah blah blah. You're moving around, and so you're turning around and you're looking down the gangplank there as people are coming up to get on the ride, and you can't help but look down the midway, and so all of a sudden you see that people are moving past the ride, and you go, well, who started? Who started it tonight? You know, so we would take bets back in the day as to what time of night, and it always depended on if the crowd wasn't big enough, it wouldn't move. But if the crowd was big enough, then that motion came in. And it would always last at least an hour, would always last at least until 11 o'clock at night, and it would always wait until after the children were gone. There were these certain parameters that always happened, regardless of whether we were in Georgia, Alabama, or somewhere in Florida. It did not matter. So there's that. And so folks say, nah, this morphic resonance and us affecting other people and groups of people and all this. Listen, it does happen. It does exist. And people need to be more aware of it. Why? Because it exists. That's why people who go, oh, that kind of thing doesn't matter. Listen, hang on. We need to accept the fact that some of these things really do exist. I've observed so many things in nature, where there's an animal thing, like I was talking about the critters eating out of the same pan out there. And then there's Duggar interacting with all the cats and with all the other critters around. Some critters he don't like, and he can smell them from 100 yards off, and other critters like the cats. They play nose to nose, and in old CT, he gets right up underneath Duggar and walks around with him. It's funny. But so there is this resonance between the critters, Duggar and the cat. And then there's, resonance between the cats. And then there's a resonance between the cats and Duggar, but it's an animal thing, but it's happened. It is happening. It does happen because I've observed it for the last 4 years, and I've observed it with other dogs and other cats too. So this has been a rolling thing as far as, information between the critters. But so I say that there's also a morphic energy, like with trees and flowers and things. I got a little flower bed out here where these great big things come up and bloom, and I have put some bulbs in the ground. I can't think of the names right now, but um, they get great big stalks on them, and there's a like a lily kind of thing at the top of them. They're really pretty, and um, I have swiped some bulbs out of the ditch one time near a house that had burned down, and they'd transplanted them there. And um, um, a friend of mine gave me some bulbs I put in there. But to the point, though, I have given very little attention this last year and a half to that flower bed out there. Okay, I planted everything with wonderful intentions. I go out there, and I was weeding around it the other day and moving the rocks, not tulips, no. Um, I'm just drawing a blank at the moment, but not onions. And it ain't garlic. Now the garlic's planted out back, so I know what that is. No, these are flower type bulbs, not edible type bulbs. Um, I was going to say gladiolas, but that's not right either. They're like calamus or calamus or something, or anyway. But so the fact that this year they through the weeds that I haven't been able to get to, they're blooming just, oh my God. So above the weeds, are these beautiful flower tops, you know, and because I haven't been able to keep as good a care of it this year as I have in the past. So it's like, but I keep going by, and it's sort of like a type of lily, yes. Um, I knew the names, but I'm just drawing a blank at the moment. So, but anyway, my point is I go by there, I mow around it and weed around it, but I haven't got in it. You know, it hurts me, but it hurts my back too much to bend over and get in the flower bed. And Miss Rhonda, who has helped me over the last few years, has not helped me this year to get the weeds out of it. So, but the flowers are still happy in there. There is a resonance set up with the crystals that I've put around this rather large, let's see, it's at least a 10 by 20 square. Okay. And so there's different types of flowers in there. Um, and some things that come up on its own, like weeds and that dreaded, hedge that I can't get rid of. And also there's this wild lettuce that has grown to like 18 feet tall there on the edge of this garden. So every time my friends come over, they go, "Man, I can't believe how tall that thing is." And I'm like, "Yeah, how about that?" There must be good energy around this spot for this thing to grow to 20 feet tall. I mean, it's huge. And there's another one the yard, down the yard more. That's another one that's about 7 foot tall now. And so I'm just letting it grow to see how tall it'll get. I should do a video or take a picture of it. It's huge. And there's, the flowers at the top and the seeds way up there, and it's like, holy crap. So my point about the flower bed is I've put crystals around it over the years. I have cultivated it. My aliens out there, laying on the ground. There are rocks from all over, like rocks that I brought back from North Georgia that I picked up over the years because it's sort of my rock garden that goes around the perimeter of this flower bed. And I really do need to take better care of it, but it just gets away from me. So, but anyway, and I've got, solar lights around it, and I do try to keep it, cleaned out. So, um, but I believe it's the resonance around that area that lets these plants grow so tall, even with weeds around them. Because it surely isn't because I weed them and care for them on a regular basis, but I have in the past. So I set up the resonance. You know what I mean? And my friend Rhonda would come and we'd dig in it and do and move and plant. And so over the years, this flower bed has received a lot of positive energy. Even though it's been, this last year, I haven't done as much, but as I've been out there gardening this year and pulling weeds and doing and watching that, lettuce tree grow out there, it's got to be the resonance set up in that area for those particular plants, right? They're happy in that flower bed and in that area. So I don't believe that this, Morphic energy is only related to mammals. Oh, that's where I was getting with this. And my flower bed is my example. Okay. Excuse me. Oh, it's close to a 20. Here we go. I need an excuse. So, the morphic resonance of the human race, for example, let's just look at the election, right? There were so many people who were like, no, I've had enough of this. So many people said, no, no guys in the girls' locker room, no this, that, and the other thing, no more chopping us body parts. Gavin was asked whether or not 8 years old was too young for a boy to have a sex change. I mean, it's like 8 years old. Come on. I mean, at 18, I didn't know what was going on. So, but 8 years old. So, but so the collective, guess who? The morphic resonance of the collective shook up and said, we can't have this. We don't want this. So call it the MAGA movement or whatever you want. But it was all of the peoples saying, nah, no more, not a nick, And so together we voted Trump in. And that was the morphic resonance of all of us, Republican, Democrat, whoever it was, we, the collective, said no. Okay, if you want to say the Republicans, okay, but I don't subscribe or prescribe to just one set of numbers because I used to be a Democrat like a lot of other people, right? So, but the idea that we no more nonsense like that. My democratic views were not like that. So the morphic resonance of the people got together in the quantum for the United States of America, and we said no. And so Trump was elected. And so there are other things that are changing for the same reason. Why? It's the morphic resonance of the people who listen to his, speeches and so forth, as Republicans or whoever have decided, listen, we want change. That's the morphic resonance of the people. Okay. It's not some kind of drummed up something. No, it's the energy of the people. It is a feeling that comes across. So I mean, right here, like a couple of days ago, and Dan Bongino, he went to Florida for an extended, 3 or 4 day vacation. Probably tired of Washington, had to get back to his roots, and to his wife and family, literally. But about the Jeffrey thing, right? And I don't want to say it all, but the Jeffrey thing. And so it's like, no, that's all there is. And people are going, mm-mm. And so there's enough flack. Guess what? It's the morphic resonance of the people that created enough flack to where tonight, DJT has said, okay, Pam, let it all out, put it with the grand jury, everything that the grand jury will allow to come out. Now, that's a loaded question, but at least it's more than one person saying no. It's a grand jury of people that says, that's too sensitive. You can't do that because it goes to there, or there's somebody. So, but what changed the tone of it where 4 days ago it was like, that's it, ain't no more, to now dump it out on the sidewalk, for everybody to see. So what changed in the last 3 days, 4 days? Morphic resonance. The people started thinking, the same people who were thinking alike that did the election are still thinking alike, and they're all going, no, no, no. We need to see the whole graphic, dump it on the floor kind of thing. Let us scrape through it. Let us pull up pictures and discern for ourselves. But it has been the morphic resonance of the people thinking together, putting it in the quantum, that said, hey, we are not accepting this. So then, because of the influence of the people in the quantum field thinking the same thing, of course, people putting out posts and arguing and this and that and say, that helped too. But it was because of the morphic resonance, the morphic field, that the subject started. Okay, so there are people who are going, what, Jeffrey? What? So they're drawn immediately to Jeffrey, and with Jeffrey is this attached to it is this morphic field. Can't help it, right? And there are people who are attached to the Jeffrey thing from different angles, from the angle of law, from the angle of pedos, from the angle of children's, from the angle of trafficking, from the angle of island, from the angle of airplane, from the angle of, so everybody had their own little angle, but it all goes to the same morphic resonance of Jeffrey, because there is a morphic field set up around that subject. Okay, and it exists. It's there. Toys R Us. I was a Blue Dog Democrat. Me too, John. John? I'm sorry. Where are you? Or where are you from? If you're a Blue Dog Democrat, no, I guess you could be in Pennsylvania. Well, never mind. Anybody that says that is usually from the South, is my point. Are you from the South? Yeah, see, there you go, from the South. I got it right. Abilene. Thank you very much, John. I have not been there. Would love to go, though. Is it still a cattle town? Because back in the days, it was the cattle drives were all to go to Abilene, because there was, a train hookup there. But anyway, so back in the old days, there was a lot of morphic resonance. And you go, how do you know, Dave? Well, because there were on the channel with Robert V, we have been talking about over the last month or so, big time cattle and oil. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the oil at the moment, but I just remember Abilene and watching them John Wayne movies and such, to where, that was a big cattle town. So, but yeah, and oil too. Yeah, absolutely. But so we've been talking about the mountain men and how they, how this guy, he basically, blazed the trail through the Rocky Mountains up here, the Oregon Trail. And, this guy, he went to the southern route and he blazed the trail, down into the, towards the San Diego end of California and stuff, where the other one was up in Oregon and Washington. So it's like, but, so having been out there into the Rockies, not for a long time, but having, driven through them and seen them and went, holy crap, how did these guys know where to go, where instinctively, because there's a lot of little um, crevices and stuff. You could go down this way and have to turn around and come back. And you go down this way, you got to turn around and come back. You have to go over here and maybe it might work, but you have to go a little further. And then you find out some gun, it don't work. You got to turn around and come back. So how did these guys, and they were effective, right? How did these guys blaze these trails so effectively? Okay. Um, I think they had in them a sense of the morphic resonance of the area, of like, there's a spot that's through here, and they look at the mountains and they ride along the foothills a little bit, and something they spot a spot and go, I think we can get through here. And so that's what made them so effective. Now, I ain't got a bit of proof, but having been out there and having like just driven with a car going, holy crap, how did these guys find these passes and stuff through the Sierras? Oh my God, they're huge. And I mean, and they were pretty quick about it, and not only that, but they would go through the passes to the other side, do their business and come back, so they knew their way back. So to me, that was like, one big deal. And kept going. Other people kept going in the same directions. And so there are people who said, got to go the Oregon Trail. And so why the Oregon Trail? Why the Southern Trail? So people made these decisions. And yeah, they talked about it amongst themselves. But back in the pioneer days, they were still using, I say still, I guess maybe they were creating it. They were creating this resonance between the people on the wagon trains, to which way they wanted to go, to which fork they wanted to take, and listen here, mortar forker, we're going this way. But I mean, but there was a sense with the wagon train, right? And then there was a sense among the people. There was the sense with the wagon master and this. So there was at where are we going? Oregon. We're going to Oregon Trail. We're going this way. Well, how did he know where the Oregon Trail was? It wasn't like they had road signs all along the way. No, it was great big open fields and plains and prairies. And, they didn't say where, they had, notes about, cross up north of the flats or something, or, try to ford your animals across the, you know, just north of the rapids or something, whatever. So they forged their way across the United States with wagon trains and people and children and chickens and dogs and, and stuff that had to have had some morphic resonance in there. Had to have. Instinct. Well, which way should I go? Which way does the trail go, boss man? That instinct. A trail is literally a trail. Exactly. And the only time it got to be a real trail was when 100 wagons went the same way and there were ruts in the ground. But before that, it was a horse trail, literally horse and mule, and that was, and maybe a wagon, the occasional wagon. But the original trail breakers were on horseback or on mules. So how did the Oregon Trail become so like an interstate? Right, and it did. There were so many wagon trains and people and stuff crossing them across the prairie. But among the people who wanted to go, like the gold fever of the 49ers to go into California, what gave him the fever? There's gold out there. Yeah, but okay, but there was gold in North Georgia, and there still is. And there was a rush on in North Georgia, which really messed up the land in a lot of ways. It's a good thing they stopped what they were doing. They were washing the sides of the mountains down with water, great big huge water cannons, and they would wash the side of a mountain down into a sluice and then sluice the gold out of the side of the mountain. It did a lot of damage. But then the 49ers, so, a couple of newspaper articles, and next thing you know, word of mouth. But the word of mouth spread like a consciousness thing. There was more to it than that. There was this sense of like the 49ers, there was a gold rush. They didn't walk there, they ran. If they could have, they would have flew there, right? So how did all of that, accumulate? It's because it got so busy. The idea of gold in California set up the resonance, the resonant value, the gold being there, set up the resonance value. That's what got everybody going in with this morphic movement in the quantum. And they all said, yoo-hoo, and off they went. So it wasn't just reading an article in the newspaper. There was something that was actually going on energetically with all the peoples here. And there were newspapers that went as far as, across the ocean and stuff, and people came over and still did the California thing. Or sailed around South America and come up and did it from there. But to the point though, a lot of folks, you know, knew about certain things, and it was sort of just from the Akashic record. They were picking up these things through the morphic resonance that was set up about the gold. So this has been going on for a long time. This isn't like, oh, this phenomena just started, or it's the first time we've looked at it or something like that. Well, it may be that it's the first. Well, I going back to Rupert Sheldrake is his name that I'm talking about, who has discussed this at length in different lectures and videos and stuff. And I'll have to dive in a little further and listen to him some more. But just the idea fits exactly what I've been talking about for the last 10 years at least. Oh, is that what y'all are calling it? Oh, it's the morphic resonance. Well, if we all pray together about the same thing, will our prayers set up enough resonance to achieve whatever it is we're all meditating or praying about? And I spoke about this the other day in the looking in the mirror thingy. And it's like, can you set up your own resonance within your own body? And I say, yeah. You have to talk to yourself. You have to talk to your soul. And in having a conversation with your own soul, you can set up a cosmic resonance within yourself that will resonate with the rest of stuff around. Because in the shaman's goal is to resonate with all things. If you're religious and spiritual at all, you want to get along with stuff. You don't want to go out and argue and then go to church, no, because that defeats the purpose. Or maybe you go to church to ask for forgiveness for hollering at people all week. But to the point, if you're seeking anything spiritual and you want to be consistent with it, what do? You set up a harmony with something, music or home, or just humming, or maybe it's some music, or maybe it's a drum, maybe it's nothing else. Maybe you get off on listening to the silence, and that's cool too. But in that, what are you looking for? You're looking for a vibration. You're looking for ding, 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 a resonance. I didn't know what I was looking for before, and what I was looking for was just and still do. I just want to connect. Oh, okay, I'm meditating and I want to become one with the universe, right? That's what I'm meditating for. I just want to become, I don't want to take control of anything. I don't want to be a bother or whatever, but I would like to point my finger at certain things and like, hey, y'all stop that over there. If I could, I would set up a resonance that would fry some people for doing things or even trying to do certain things. So in my meditation, lo and behold, because I've listened to Mr. Rupert, that I'm just becoming part of the normal. I'm just meditating into the quantum. I'm just becoming I'm being aware of becoming a part of the morphic resonance. So if I'm working and running around and driving, I ain't paying attention to that. But if I light a candle and I do a drum or I do some music or I do some yoga or do whatever, right, to get you in that mode, getting in that mode is finding, guess what? The morphic resonance. You're trying to get your body and your mindset in a frequency that resonates with the rest of folks and with the universe, and that makes you part of the morphic resonance. I mean, it's like, what? So there are too many examples of how, I just gave the example of the 1,000 people going around in a circle at a carnival or a fair. And I don't know of other events, but I have seen indoor events, uh, like at FFA or something, a bunch of people, and they all have a tendency once it gets started, it goes around in a circle. And all the people, even though they probably ain't even thinking about it, they're just walking along with the crowd and they end up going around in a circle with everybody else. It's amazing. All right. So, these things do happen. There have been many times, and one of these, the morphic resonance thing, is that two people have the same idea on the other opposite sides of the planet, at roughly the same time. There are too many, um, examples of great engineers and Edison and somebody else and blah, 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 and this person, that person. Anyway, that these ideas came out at the same time, but with different people. So, a lot of other, examples. I had an example here, my own, where I told my aunt we were at the Skyway Drive-In in Tampa, probably watching an Elvis movie, and at the drive-in theater, and I was like, I went and got drinks and everything, and back then we had the cars. You opened up the glove compartment, and there were indentations in the glove box lid to put your drinks. And there was always two spots, unless it was a compact car, and then it was just like one. But so you could put your drink in there, and it wouldn't slide off easily. So, but in the car and everything, it was too cramped, and I was telling my aunt Shirley, I said, one of these days somebody's going to invent some kind of plastic thing that will clip on the side of the door so you can put your glass in. And now this was like 1966 or 7, right? And later on, my aunt called me on the phone when she saw that they had plastic cup holders that attached to the inside of the car. She called me on the phone and said, David, you were ahead of your time. If I had invested money in your idea, we would both be rich now. And she was like, I can't believe You had that idea and somebody else made the money off of it. True story. But so I can't date when I had the idea, as I might have been a teenager, at that time. I probably was a teenager, 52, 62. Yeah, I was a teenager. So, but did somebody have the same idea as me? In my head, the way it looked, when I told her and described it, how it would hang, I saw one in Walmart or wherever it was back then. It was the J.M. Fields. There was a cup holder, and I went, "That's exactly, what I saw in my head." You know, it was thin and thing and getting the clips, but that's exactly what I saw in my head. So coincidence? Okay, no, I haven't made any money off of it, but it's my story, and I'm sticking to it because I know it's true. And my aunt will still verify it to this day, because it's like it was one of those things. She was like, David, I can't believe you had that idea, and then 2 or 3 years later, they're making them. So anyway, connection to the quantum through through this morphic resonance deal. Why did it resonate with me? And maybe it was somebody else that was being frustrated at a drive-in theater that had the same idea the same time as I did. I wouldn't doubt that, because it was a pain in the neck back in the day. You needed that cup holder. Wonder how many millions, multi-millions, that cup holder, plastic cup holder made. But so anyway, and I made Press the Light Wire a lot of money from a couple of my ideas, and one of them saved them over $100,000. Just one idea in just like a year saved them $400,000. So, I've had some good ideas over the years, but I also attribute some of the problem solving that I have needed over the years. I'm a fairly smart cookie, and what I don't know, I go looking for, right? Answers. So having been a machinist and having been a CAD operator and having been a production supervisor and having worked on the line before, and so there's all this firsthand knowledge. So this firsthand knowledge is about mechanics in general, how to fix a machine. So there are basics. You need a certain amount of wrenches, you know. In some cases, you need some extensions on those wrenches. And in some cases, you need to wear a pair of gloves when you're working on certain things. Otherwise, you're going to lose a knuckle or a finger. And so there is knowledge that has been put into the Akashic record of mechanics for thousands of years or more. So when something breaks down, there were times when I would just go, I don't know what to do. So they'd come to me with a problem, got to solve it quick because, production, you know, got to meet production. So they didn't know this, but I would casually, take a lunch break and fill me a pipe or a bowl. And I'd go take a lunch break and ride around and smoke my bowl and think about it. Now, what would MacGyver do? Kind of thing. What would MacGyver do? In a situation like, I need to fix this. What do I have? Bubble gum? Do I have, electric tape? Do I have any duct tape? What would MacGyver do? So I'd smoke my bowl and I would take that deep breath and get into this the mode. If any of y'all 420 it, then you might know what I'm talking about. So you get to that next level and you go, uh-huh. So I'm in that next level going, mm-hmm. And I could see the problem in my mind. And I'm just asking the universe, now, how would I fix this? And I can see it in my head and I take another hit, like, what would I do about this? And how can I, overcome this issue? Hmm. Let me talk to the morphic resonance and see what comes up. So holy crap a moly, 90% of the time I would come up with a solution, or at least the direction to go in to find the problem, to fix it, and give it a solution. So I have talked about this over the years with folks, and I'm, not just about that, but basically, to a good mechanic, how do you troubleshoot? He goes, well, first I listen. If it's somebody that comes in with their car or something, I listen. And then I put my hands on the car, on the vehicle, and I feel its vibrations. And I thought the guy was nuts until, I talked to my vehicles. The Jeep is now called Rosie because of her color. And I go out every time I get in her, I'm, hey, Miss Rosie, how you doing? And I need to take a ride, Miss Rosie, because it's been over a week now. So, but so he said, lay my hands on the vehicle, and then I talk to the owner as to what the problems are. And he said, and then I get out my gadgets to check it, right? So he says, but I want to get a feel for the car. What the hell? So, but now after all these years, I get it, because the car used to run well. It ran good before it ran well. Somebody got under the hood. Something broke. Now it ain't running so good. It ain't running so well. It ain't well at all, right? It's so it's coughing and sputtering. So having his hand on the hood and talking to the owner. Well, it's misfiring. It's blah blah blah, whatever. Yeah, okay. Now this is a good mechanic. Okay, this ain't some. This is a cantankerous old grizzled guy, maybe who's got a cigar, or at least maybe chewing tobacco if he's from the South. But in this day and age, the youngins don't quite fit that profile. But so in laying his hands on the vehicle and talking with the owner, and then he's like, I got a feel for this. Literally, he wasn't joking. He had a feel for the car and was sort of asking the universe in his own special way, all right, baby, what's wrong? And whatever is wrong, I know the answer exists in the universe. The answer is already there. I don't have to look it up in the book. Whatever's wrong with this vehicle, there has been a problem with a vehicle of the same kind somewhere else. And that problem has been tinkered with and maybe fixed or not, and somewhere else in the universe, right? So the information is already out there. Do you believe that? Well, it's true. Even now, this is a stretch, but even to the point of things that have not been quite invented yet. They might be on the drawing board, literally. They don't draw on boards much anymore, but on the drawing board, still valid. So they're making drawings and they got some ideas, but they haven't built yet. So, but if they build some of these things, they're going to have tools in order to build them. listening to this guy tonight talking about nuclear energy and about making these small, nuclear plants that are easy to build and so forth. He's talking about welding and this and that. And having been, you know, uh, in that kind of business, have worked in a similar type of business, have worked in production, most of my life of some sort or another. And so I'm listening to him, and he's like, you know what the biggest thing is? He's asked by the host, what is your biggest thing? He goes, well, we can't make these things too big, meaning a small nuclear generator thing, because of constraints. And he was like, well, what kind of constraints? And he said, tooling. We don't have enough tools. We don't have the facilities like we did in the old days. Now, in the old days, we used to have foundries and things. Well, they used to make locomotive engines. They used to make parts for locomotive engines. They used to do, and that requires a lot of steel and a lot of mold making, and it requires people who know what the hell they're doing with mixing the right amount of steel with the right amount of whatever, aluminum casting or whatever, and a lot of that has been lost. So his first point was, we've lost the machinist, we've lost the steel workers who knew all the tricks. We've lost the we've lost physically the places to build these big things. And he goes, that's number one. And he said, so we've got to build them about the size of a container off a container ship. So they're about that size because we can work with that size. Anything bigger, we would have to make the tools to make the stuff we want. So talk about an extra lift with the things that we have lost in America. But here's the thing: from the way I could listen to him talking, he knew what he was talking about. Um, in that, but the knowledge is still there. Now he wasn't talking about any kind of morphic resonance or nothing, but I am. But in listening to him, he's talking about these things, and I'm like, buddy, there are a lot of people, not just in the United States, but around the world, who still are machinists like me, who still know how to work with, pouring steel and making molds. We are still out there. He doesn't know it. Now, this is my conversation. So, in this um, morphic resonance of this new golden age, and I love the idea to see manufacturing coming back to America. That tickles a mess out of me, y'all. I'm telling you. So and Prestolite can suck it because they're going to have to bring it back across the border. They took it down there for cheap labor, and now they're paying hellacious tariffs, and so Ford, Nissan, Chrysler, Honda, they're all paying more for their spark plug wires now because of the tariffs. And because, you know, this guy from India took over an American plant and decided he knew what the hell he was doing. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. So, but in the Akashic record of things, all right? So in this, Mr. Rupert Sheldrake is his name that I was listening to. He was like, the um, the information already exists in the quantum field, in the resonance field, and that um, if we go to do a thing, we can set up a resonance field around something or around a person, or I can create my own morphic field around myself, which, by the way, is your aura, Okay, you know, he didn't say anything about an aura. He just said that, um, personal resonance and how we can create the different resonant states of different things, right? So animals have different resonance, and a good dog will have a calm resonance and happy, and and lick your hand and put his paw up and say, "I want a hot dog." It's his verbiage. I'm speaking of Duggar, who's asleep over yonder. But with that said, so you set up a resonance with the people around you. You set up a resonance with the information that you receive, because if you're listening to something that doesn't resonate with you, think about that. If it doesn't resonate with you, then in this morphic area, if it doesn't resonate with you, you're going to look for something else. Or, like for me, I'm going to look at it and go, why doesn't this resonate with me? Well, it's just freaking stupid. Well, that's a good reason that it doesn't resonate with me, because it's stupid. Or or it's scary, or it's whatever it might be, but it doesn't. So, in the grand scheme of the universe, there are probably other folks that are who are reacting to certain things with a certain frequency, which sets up a resonance. Now, the Jeffrey thing is a very nearby situation. And so, because they came out with an answer a week ago that, that's it, here it is, that's all you get, um, folks started, going back crap, cray, cray. So, in a lot of ways, they should and should have. And by doing so, they set up a resonance. They set up a frequency. The frequency is simple. We want the truth. We want answers. We want to see the whole thing. Don't lie to us. Don't say, we looked at it. It's okay. You don't want to see none of it. No, we do want to see it. People want to, plow through that thing but they want to see it. We want to see it. We want to determine for ourselves, right? So, but in doing so, for seeking that truth, whatever that is, we collectively have set up this resonance. And because there was such a flack with the resonance that was set up, the rules got changed. And they said, now, okay, all right, Pam, dump it all on the floor. Dump every bit of it. Well, it's got to go through the grand jury. All right, y'all. Dump it on the floor. We Americans want to see this thing, all these files and stuff. We want to see Jeffrey's stuff dumped on the floor so we can go plunder through it. We did that by changing the resonance and the frequency. They thought they'd get by with, yeah, it's okay. Mm-mm. Yeah, it's okay. No. Yes, yeah, it's no. No. Hell no. Spikes in the frequency, right? So, in a week, the morphic resonance that was set up around this topic was changed. We did it. Pay attention. So, does this morphic resonance exist? Oh, hell yeah. There's an example right there, right now, live and in living color. There is proof that, yes, the morphic resonance idea that Rupert Sheldrake has discussed is absolutely there. And other scientists and people have discussed it, but there's proof in the pudding right there. You want an example? There you go. So in real time, and those of us who are still thinking in a particular way, I was like, I don't think y'all ought to get your, buns in an uproar. You should be like rabbit and just sit still. And I pulled the rabbit card last night, as a matter of fact, in a card reading that I did, and it was like, yep, sometimes you need to sit still and just wait a notch, you know. If you don't move, you can't get hit, you know. If you just sit still, and maybe they won't see me, or sometimes you just got to sit still to watch and see what's going on, right? So by sitting still, for myself now I speak, for by sitting still, I saw the resonance change. I saw the frequency change. And so here a week later, we'll see what happens now. But a week later, the the story is changed. That story is that, you know, resonance frequency, that morphic idea. So, you know, I'm not going to make this a long video. It's an hour and 36 minutes. Have a 20 with me and wrap this up. But there are a lot of other ideas. There are a lot of other, I say ideas, that's true. There are a lot of ideas by people that resemble ideas from other people. Like, hey, I had that idea. That's how we could fix such and such. Okay, not a problem. And that's what people like mechanics, we sort of close our eyes and envision something. And I got to get me a wrench, and I got to get a torque wrench, and I got to get a pry bar, and I got to get and then they go fix something, right? So what are they doing? They are using their own frequency and their own record, their own aura, if you will, because that's basically what it boils down to. That energy field that is around us is our aura. So our aura is physically connected with the quantum on a spiritual kind of level, on a frequency kind of level. It's our aura, and it's already touching stuff, you know, on that frequency level, because our aura is a frequency unto itself. And so, the mechanic wants to have information. He wants to think about how to fix a problem. And he closes his eyes, and his aura goes out there and goes through the mechanic's handbook and says, here, this is a good idea. Let's try this. And he stands up and he goes, okay, let's go try this. You know, now he doesn't know 99% of the time that he is accessing the Akashic record of mechanics. He doesn't know that. But because he is a mechanic and resonates in a mechanic's kind of way of, knowing how to fix things. Yeah, I did at about 11:30 uh, last night. But yeah, I have. Thanks for asking. I did take my meds. But so he doesn't know it, but he has reached into the Akashic record of mechanics. Like there are artists who don't necessarily copy other people, but they will sometimes copy a theme. You know, don't cut your ear off though. Stay out of that. But folks that learn about coloring, masons who work with concrete and cement and stuff, who there's the masons. Well, but no, I mean physically, folks who pour cement. The Romans, for example, you know, we still can't make concrete that lasts as long as the what the Romans created all them years ago. So who was more stupider, But somehow that information that the Romans used in the cement that they used to build all them aqueducts and things and viaducts and just ducts in general, and the general too. Um, oh, I just had a, if I had a cigar, yeah, and the duck he rode in on. But anyway, can you guess who that is? And the duck soup. Anyway, um, yeah, the brothers. But so anyway, um, there are artists, there are musicians that. Where did you get that idea? I don't know. I was laying in bed one night and I heard this tune, and I got up and I tinkered with it on the piano, and dun, da, da, dun, a song is born. Or like Tesla, Nikola Tesla, slept with a pad and pencil by his nightstand, so that when he woke up in the middle of the night, which was frequently, he would use that pad and pencil and write down his ideas, notes, or whatever that he had while he was asleep. So, and then there's Edgar Casey, who went out there and was the sleeping prophet, who went out there and saw things in a literally in a different light from that Akashic record kind of point of view, and that he was absolutely in tune with the resonance of the person that he was asked to look at, or the person that he was asked to help with some kind of home remedy or something. So, but talk about a morphic resonance. And then other people heard about that type of thing. And other people, folks that I knew down here in the country, um, you know, they believed heavily in Edgar Casey, you know. And they were true, Southern Baptist Christians, man. They didn't believe in Huff and Puff, but they believed in Edgar Casey, boy, I'll tell you what. So, and so in that time frame that Edgar was there, and in the people that he cured with his simple remedies, which are still valid and available to this day. Peanut oil is really good for a bunch of stuff, especially arthritic joints. Um, actually, I should do some on my elbow. But so anyway, so information has been received from the quantum, and many people have referenced the quantum, that morphic field, and that we as human beings can think along a particular way, and we can set up a resonance, a frequency. And in this last week, people set up a frequency that was hell no, Jeffrey, hell no, Jeffrey, and they changed their minds. So we can alter the frequency of things. We can alter the frequency of events. We can alter the frequency around things, personally and group wise. So, and there is strength in that. So be strong. This idea of the morphic resonance, to me, is not necessarily an awakening, because I understood, I've been trying to explain about the energies connected with things. It's the cosmic goo has been my discussion all these years. We're all connected in the cosmic goo. trees and humans and plants and birds and animals. We're all connected in the cosmic goo. Cosmic goo is now the quantum field. It's now, and the things that we do within the field, like the the frequency, the resonance, this morphic resonance, we can change things personally and otherwise. So this week has been a good example. Pay attention. You know, don't get greedy though. I would say to the universe, and don't get greedy. I would. I said that, didn't I? But don't get greedy because when they find out that this morphic resonance, depending on how it gets set off, could have dire circumstances in some instances. So I would tell the universe, don't get greedy. All right, dump this stuff about Jeffrey on the floor and let's get done with it. Let's get it over with. So, and I agree with DJT is we need to focus on what's in front of us. And he's trying to set up a morphic resonance of let's look ahead. Let's keep going for the future. So his dabbling with the morphic resonance is let's set up a frequency of come on guys, let's go. It's MAGA. It's all of us working together. It's to make everything great again. It's to make, to be respected again. It's about all of these things. So setting up a new resonance, which is the new golden age thing for America, that's the new resonance. And obviously it's part of the morphic resonance because all of these things are moving and morphing into different things. So I say, happy morphing, I mean, to the butterfly, and those type of critters that go into a cocoon and develop inside and then come out. That's morphing. That's what it's all about for them. They go out and hoard around and eat a gluttonous meal as caterpillars, and then they go morphing. Coming up on another 20. So as I started out with this thing 2 hours ago, I was like, one of the first things is that for the shaman journey, all right? You say, well, Dave, you've been talking about this for the last 2 hours and you ain't done nothing about mention about the shaman. The shaman has to absolutely understand that that it exists. This unseen force in nature, in the universe, does actually exist. This morphic resonance of plants and animals and human beings absolutely, without a doubt, exists. 100%, 101%, you got to believe it in your heart. You got to eat it, see it, feel it, get it. You got to get it. And until that person who is trying to be truly, truly spiritual now has got to look inside, like I did the mirror video the other day, you got to look inside and be honest with yourself, because honesty will put you in tune and in tune with the resonance that is the morphic resonance of the quantum fields. And welcome to the quantum fields. Let's go play in the flowers and run across the fields and hop and skip and through the Woodskis anyway. So, but it is very important that you got to understand, because to understand about this morphic resonance, it's the planet, it's a couple of planets, it's the solar system, and then it's the galaxy, and then it's all of a sudden it's the universe. You understand these things in steps. And as the shaman is learning how to understand his spiritualness with the universe, he's going to understand it in steps, because if it gets blasted with it, it won't make any sense. So there are steps that the shaman takes, which is like to sit and pray and see what happens, and see if they can, close their eyes and somehow feel like they're a part of a tree, or a part of the grass, or part of the ground, or a part of the universe, or a part of, or they close their eyes and meditate, and maybe they see somebody that in their mind's eye, or and something happens to them, and then they realize that they begin to realize that there is this morphic resonance that is the universe, that here these last so many years is being discussed as, the quantum field, or the quantum energy, or it is the quantum. So the quantum is the morphic resonance. It's the same thing. And it's the same thing as I've been talking about is the cosmic goo. So however you want to describe it, it's absolutely there. And I've yacked about it for the last 2 hours. So be your own observer, because I pulled the the eagle card and the hawk card tonight. And hawk is the messenger. And the message is you got to be observant, because the hawk's up high and looking around. You got to be observant, because everything that you see in nature, ding, 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 everything that you see in nature is a message from the universe. What? So, the universe is sending you signs, but if you're not paying attention, like hawk, then you're going to miss them. You're going to miss being sent to you by the universe, by God, by the creator, by the universe, by the quantum field, by the morphic resonance that is the human experience. What? Yeah, how about that? So you want to know about horses? Dream about them. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go read a book or something, but you can get inspiration. You can be maybe directed to books, or maybe to a stable, or you put out there, man, I wish I could learn about horses. And then the next thing you know, you bump into somebody that runs a horse stable or something, and they invite you out. And next thing you know, you're riding and doing, and next thing you know, you're giving lessons and teaching other people. And yeah, it is. It's right on another 20, and I'm about to get to the bottom of this bowl too, and about time to go, to honestly go to sleep now. I got to get up in a bit and go to the store. I don't think I could stay awake long enough for a store to open. So I'm going to have to take a nap first. But anyway, for this discussion, see, I wanted this discussion to go out into the universe. So it's like, well, why don't I wait for another time to do this video live? Well, because I really wanted to get it into the current cosmic vortex of stuff, and let it sit out there, and like throwing a line out in the river and see if anything bites. Not that I'm looking for bites, mind you, that's not my point. But is anybody interested in this? Does anybody care about the morphic energy, or the resonance, or the resonance of us? Or is anybody out there even thinking about, being on a shaman journey or a spiritual journey of any kind? And does any of this make any fudging difference to their understanding of the universe? And my answer to that is, yeah, it does. You have to understand and allow yourself to understand that this information in the universe, some of it is so ancient, it started when time started. you know, that's how long this stuff's been around. So it ain't nothing new. But that the more experiences, not just ours, and not just, Americans, and not just, North and South Americans, but then is the whole dang planet, you know. Um, it would be nice for everybody to be awake, to understand that I'm going to use this word, but I don't really feel this condition. And the condition is the morphic resonance. That is, the condition is the quantum field. The condition is the goo around us, the manna, as Dolphin says. It's in the air, it's in the the breath that we breathe. It's, it's, oh my God, it's all around us, it's in us, we are it. Our aura is our shield, and that's our connection to the quantum field. If we've got our aura in the right color, shape, and frequency, then we get along just fine with the rest of the resonance. We resonate with it. So practice what you got. Because in the end, it is all about frequencies. When you go to the other side, it's all about frequencies. Was you a good person with a good vibration? Or was you a sleaze bag with a bad vibration? You know, you're going to be digging trenches in the poop area for the rest of eternity, until you get reincarnated, maybe, so that you can, you know, clear your shit up, literally. And or is it going to be that the person who with the good energy and the smiles get to go on the next adventure without having to scrape poop off of the outhouse walls? So, the universe has a bunch of strange things. So I say have a 20 and focus on that frequency of other people who are using that 20 as a way to vibrate in a different way, to resonate differently. They're going to hit this thing and go, ah, and they're automatically resonating at a different frequency every time. And then there's Duggar. But there's cats out there. But rarely does anyone do a 20 and leave without a smile. By the end of it, it's like, wow, I had a shitty day, man. My day today was so bad, but you know what? I had to holler at some at work, and then damn thing went out, And so, I had a lousy day, but I couldn't wait to get home and do a 20. Boy, I needed to. Here, I'll share with you What, you need shotgun? Oh, you done smoked one on the way over here. Okay. Well, you know, you know, what a crazy day at work today, man. It pissed me off so. And, and let me have another hit on this bowl here. Yeah, that day was just so crazy, man. I realized I was pissed, but, I don't seem to be pissed anymore. For those of us, I have smoked so long, I forget, right? But for those of us who do a 420, and how we take that breath and go, and can't explain it, but my brain goes, ah, and gets to a different frequency, a different resonance, a different calmness, a different somewhere, right? And so, if I'm not out to like get blistered, get high, then these last couple of hits that I have are fine because it's given me that little bit of, and so, you know, I'm on that little slightly elevated, in my opinion, up to this other level of looking around kind of thing. Um, and so my connection, I feel, to the morphic resonance is enhanced by, a couple of, hits off my 420. So in some flavors will give me different varying degrees of change in the resonance. Some will just like, I'm going to sit back here and enjoy the resonance. And sometimes it's like, man, I really like this resonance. I can think of all kinds of stuff. E equals MC squared my ass, you know. Oh, I thought that was a deer up there. There is that something up in the yard? Oh, it is. It's a turkey. Oh man, that's a big turkey. Duggar, is that what you've been barking at? It's a huge turkey up there. Holy crap. Just strutting across the field up there. Whoa. I guess my new eyes work. I mean, because that's at least 100 yards that I'm looking at up there. But I look out this window so often, and there's I know the tree line, and so there's an azalea bush there, and so the turkey was standing in front of the azalea bush. So it's like, wait a minute, that azalea bush don't have this brown gray thing. Wait a minute, that's a turkey. But anyway, so yeah, that's a good ways off. I'll have to measure that and find out just how far it is from here to there. I'm looking to see if there's usually them turkeys follow in a covey like we don't have any quail anymore, but we've got a good population of turkey here on the property. I should set up the trail cam. Now that I see him walking up there, Spirit's been banging me on the shoulder, going, set that deer cam up there. Put that deer cam up there. Well, what if the deer don't go? Yeah, but there's turkey that's coming up there too. So I need to go set up a deer cam. There's a big pine tree up there that I need to put it on that would catch anything that's coming up along the fence line. Um, Now, here's something interesting. I've talked about this before. My next door neighbors who have turned out to be not quite so crotchety after all these years, they mow this 4-acre field with a lawnmower. I mean, every 2 weeks they mow it. Hey, Barry, how you doing? And so on my side of the fence line is, ultra. natural, And so, and I've got, flowers and things planted along the fence line. So there's an azalea bush there, and then up the driveway a little bit is another one with a different color. And so during the spring, these different azalea bushes bloom. And then coming down along over here, there's another bush and another this and a small tree and and so, and I'm just telling my buddy Bob yesterday, hi Bob, the other Bob, you know, um, that I need to run the lawnmower down along the fence because there's all these pine cones and things, and I want to be able to ride my scooter down there. And it goes down there really well, but it does not like going over pine cones. So I need to go down there and mow it and get the pine cones and stuff out of the way and make it nicer. But anyway, so um, I've noticed over the years that the deer walk. A, Now maybe they do walk up on that side of the fence, but I've seen them on this side of the fence a whole lot more. My side of the fence, there's more cover on. If you go on their side, everything's open, right? And so see a long way. Over here on my side, they can peek their head up, they can look, they can browse because there's a lot of browsing material. Uh, you know, there's all kinds of magazines up there they can read. Um, you know, and they can munch, with the small trees and stuff along the way that grows up along there. So it's perfect for both kind of browsing. So anyway, and I'm still looking to see if there's any more turkeys. Do you see any more up there, Duggar? He's looking out the window like, hmm. He missed the big one though. He missed that big one. But so, I'm sitting here talking about, the morphic resonance of things and how over the years, as far as my shaman journey, I'm still in a well, I think I'm further than apprentice now because of certain things that I've learned, certain knowledge that I didn't realize I was so dang smart in some things. And then I start listening to folks and I go, are they just picking this up? Well, we learned about this and such and the energies. And I'm like, what? I was talking about that, 20 years ago. I'm not bragging. I'm just stating fact, so it's like, hang on here. You guys it's just dawning on you what some of this stuff is about. Really? Wow. So I have been realizing that on several items, even in a couple of science ideas and things, that I'm ahead of the curve, and have been. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm in looking at it because I did a video the other day about looking in the mirror. So in looking in the mirror, I asked myself the question, I think I might have talked about it during the video. Am I am I making a difference at all in the universe? Does me coming on and do videos, does it make a difference at all in the universe? I've never asked anybody to share or like or anything like that, or that they should, follow behind me, No, I want people to think, right? And so, but I have to ask the question of myself to myself, you see. Am I making should I stop what I'm doing? Should I continue? So I'm having these, I don't want to call them self doubts, but in a way. So, but as a shaman in training, I know that I'm learning things on a sliding scale, but I have just come to realize that I have put in a crap load of years and a crap load of time, which just in experience alone, I've accumulated X amount of wisdom, whether I knew it or not. So it's like, wait a minute. So here recently, it has been brought to my attention by other outside sources, mind you, that I ain't as dumb as I look, you know? So, meaning that somewhere along the line, because I was listening to one podcaster, and he was like, there are people, there are there are shamans out there, and the first thing they need to learn is, our connection to the universe, and I was, and and they need to learn this and this and this, and it was going down the list, and I was like, at the end of it, I was like, I passed. And this and this and this and this, and a good shaman will learn this, and a shaman, blah, 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 and there was like five major things that he discussed, and I was like, I can do that, or I have done that, or and so I was like, do I pass? So from his point of view, you in order to be a shaman, you had to have these five things. And I came up with a sixth. It's like, so somewhere along the line, I realized that I have attained a certain amount of knowledge that has put me beyond my own memory. I can't, I'm not very smart. I don't, but then when you get to talking about on a certain subject, it's like, well, I do know that. I do understand, production facilities. I do understand about dyes. I do understand about, you know, um, advertisement, being in the carny business, and I do understand about this, and I do understand about automotive because I've been a mechanic. I do understand, and I realize that wait a minute, in my lifetime, with all the things that I've done and all the things that I have studied, I have accrued a certain amount of information that as this person was listing the qualities of a shaman, I passed. So I'm not tooting my own horn. It's just that it had to be a self realization. So, am I doing any good? Well, Dave, this person that you trust, that you've been listening to for 10 years, has just described what he and they think are the qualities of a good shaman. Not a shaman in training, but a good shaman, and I passed. So in this, there are things that I'm trying to pass this information on to you. So how do you know that if you've achieved something? Because I didn't know that they weren't talking about me now. They were talking about qualities of a shaman and things that and so but I didn't know that I had passed. I didn't know that there was a test. I know that there are people who believe certain things, and that if you know these certain things, then you now belong in a category of folks that, understanding, okay, so now I'm a shaman for real because somebody acknowledged what I know and how I know it, kind of thing. So, in talking to the universe, and obviously, and in a way, in a big way, my understanding of the morphic resonance without knowing what the morphic resonance even was or is. Now that's just a description of stuff. Um, Rupert, Sheldrake is his name, and there are a few YouTube videos out there and discussing, our connection, our connection with thoughts, um, being connected to the quantum. There were Native Americans who, be careful was be careful with what you think because your neighbor might be listening to your thoughts, you know. And so it's like, what? So to this, with this morphic resonance, if if our frequency resonates correctly, then we can be heard out there in the quantum. Our thoughts are kind of sort of commingling with other folks who are thinking the same thing, which creates that resonance. So a bunch of us thinking on the same thing with the same relative positive attitude about something, we create that resonance for that topic every single time. So if there's nobody talking about something, does that frequency exist? Here's the thing. If something exists, there is a frequency attached to it. If it exists in this material world at all, then it has a frequency. If it's a rock, if it's a tree, whatever it may be, man made or natural, it has a frequency. And so the mechanic who puts his hand on the hood and listens to the car, to feel its frequency, to, I always pat my truck and now the Jeep every time I get in and, hey Mozzie, how you doing? I pat the dash. I get in the Jeep now and it's, hey Rosie, how you doing, baby? You know. So and my sister and other people I know always talk to their vehicles. Why do we do that? Nobody told us to do it. We all felt strange when we first discussed that we talk to our vehicles. And my sister was like, well, I talk to my dog, and why not talk to my car, to the van? Oh, that's a good point. But in that, we're talking to our vehicles to include them because they have a vibration. We understand that, Rosie, the Jeep's got a certain vibration. She needs to get used to me and I need to get used to her, but she's got a cool vibration, And Mozzie, she had 11 miles on when I got the Mazda. So she's been with me the whole time, right? But now, I'm only 1,000 miles in on the Jeep and, we're still getting our resonance frequency together. Feels good. She's a nice vehicle. So, but in this grand scheme of things, as I get used to my Jeep, my truck is jealous, obviously. But in that, me talking to my Jeep and to my truck, I'm talking to an inanimate object, but that has a resonance. So together, the three of us have a resonance which resonates into the quantum, into the that morphic energy around us all. So we're a part of this, and it's a part of us. And so the idea on being a shaman or to being spiritual, which is sort of a shaman journey, the journey of being spiritual, the journey of learning how to be a part of the universe, and a journey about learning how we're all connected in the energies that we share. Ain't that doesn't that sound like the morphic resonance? You know, now that we hear all this science and we're getting strange energies from the other side of from another solar system, possibly another galaxy that's, you know, the energy's traversing distances, great distances. And they're very powerful, and they don't stop until they hit something, you know. So, and we're way out here on this, you know, foreign limb of the Milky Way galaxy. So, you know, strange winds can hit us kind of easy, you know. There's not much blocking the way, right? And especially depending on which way that energy might be coming from. So, with that said, those solar energies that hit us, and we've been coming up here, there's a big hole in the sun that's coming around, going to be pointing right at us here, like in the next day or so. So if you're watching this, you might need to hunker down inside because we're going to get some solar storms. Ain't no doubt about it. It's looking at right at us. So, you know, don't go outside and, you know, in the middle of the day, and be careful and keep an eye on stuff. And because we're already in some geostorms the last day or so. So that means radiation's up. It means the energy's up. That means, you know, we're being affected by this because those energies are so strong that they affect the magnetic energy around our Earth. But it don't affect me. Did you know that? Hey, Joe, what you know? Well, I know just 'cause the sun does something stupid don't mean that had nothing to do with me. I'm okay. Nothing happened. Nothing to see. Ooh, that was fun. Oh, that solar spike, you know, didn't affect anything. No, you know, my tractor, I couldn't get it to start. You know, it just I went out there and I went, that was it, man. It wouldn't do nothing. And I went and got me something to try to crunk it up better, and it took me 2 3 hours. And I went back out there and jumped up in the tractor and crunked right up. Must have been that energy from the sun, that sun stuff, right? Maybe we are all being affected. If the entire earth is being affected, you and me are being affected. Thus, the morphic resonance of us and of the planet is being affected. So hang on, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest thing to being a shaman is understanding these. You don't have to understand how they work, but you got to understand that they exist. The first Indian who was shot at by a rifle didn't have to know how it worked to know that some bitch was dangerous. When they heard that boom and someone of the tribe heard that ball whiz past their ear, like President Trump happened to him, you know, they went, what the hell? You know, and they learned after, you know, a couple of shots the distance that they needed to stay away so they could sit there on their horses and taunt the cavalry without, you know, without a bullet hitting them. You know, them some smart Indians, right? So they didn't have to know how the bullets worked. They didn't have to understand about gunpowder. That now later on, you know, they learned how to pour gunpowder in and tramp it and drop a ball in with wadding and all. They learned how to do that, right? They understood the mechanics of it. I bet you most of them didn't know how gunpowder was made. Now they knew that gunpowder was important. They knew if they didn't pour enough in there that when they shot it, that ball was going to go boom, and drop in front of them. And if they put too much powder in there, it was going to literally blow up in their face. So, you know, that's where some of them expressions come from. You put too much powder in your gun and you fire it off, and guess what? The whole thing blows up in your face. So, but with this morphic resonance, we don't have to understand how it works. We just have to understand that it's there, and that whether we like it or not, we're all a part of it. It's a part of the quantum. It's a part of this. I don't know. I hate to use this higher memory thing, because sometimes I don't think it's. I don't. I don't. I think sometimes with the meditation to understand certain things, for me, I have to slow everything down, right? If my mind is racing and do all this, which is sort of a higher frequency, right? I can't tune in to stuff. So that's why I do a 20 to change the resonance and the frequency of my brain and what's around me, so I can take a deep breath and ponder the situation for a minute and go, I feel more connected to the universe. I feel more connected to that morphic resonance. That apparently there's a bunch of people believe this. I'm all for it. I've been talking about it for a long time. And I'm not trying to take credit. I'm just saying, I've been trying to explain from my shaman journey what I have experienced, what I've seen, and, what maybe you should experience or expect if you're on a shamanic journey or religious journey or a spiritual journey or just looking out your window, right? But so we're absolutely a part of this stuff. So again, where is proof? This last week is proof. Jeffrey was a done deal, complete, it's all over, adios, a week ago. And now it's, let's throw everything on the table, dump it out, here it is. We'll see how much they dump out. But instead of, nope, that's it, now it's nah, whatever else you got, come on, dump it out. So that was because we changed the resonance, the resonant field around the topic of Jeff. Everybody said, no, 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 no. Change the reference point, change the energy that was trying to morph around it, which did not stick. And we, the people, changed the resonant value of Jeff and said, nope, dump it on the floor, all of it, chunk. So we'll see. I'm still, we are still waiting, but in 1 week's time, we were able. Here's proof. You want proof? We changed the resonance field, and maybe the resident too, but of the subject, of the topic, of the energy around it, and it is what it is today. So we'll see how far it comes. But does it exist? There you go. There's proof. There's proof. In living color, there's living proof a week later. Do you believe any of this stuff exists? Do you believe that, we as a peoples can change the energy of a something and make it different in a week's time or overnight or whatever? Answer is yes. Pay attention. So morphic resonance is an absolute positive thing, so other folks will like to argue with me and other folks who basically believe this. But the morphic resonance to me is another word or words for, the cosmic goo I've been talking about. It's the same thing as the quantum fields and the quantum entanglements. That's to me is what morphic resonance is. But the resonance of the universe, of the planet, of the peoples, of us. I mean, so okay, I will accept those two words, but without any problem, because they do fit the narrative, in my humble opinion. So, in talking about the cosmic goo, that's morphic resonance right there, my friends. And it's been going on forever. It goes on with the animals, the fish who did, all the animals, bears have their own bear morphic energy. Ducks have their own duck morphic energy. Trees, you know, especially the ones who don't walk around, they all have their own morphic energy. How they grow, how they speak, how they feel. I can go walk up the hill, and walk between some of those trees up there, and the energy is just like whoa, and or put my hand on one, or I haven't in a while, but I used to sit down at the base of a couple of these pine trees, oak trees as well, and just pick up some, very gracious energy if you allow yourself to share it with the tree, and you share that resonant frequency. It is you share your morphic resonance with the tree's resonance, and you share that. Oh my God, So it's like, do these things exist? Yeah, I think so. So keep practicing, keep believing, have faith. You got to believe. You got to believe. You got to believe, 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 believe. Yes, this stuff is true. Yes, doing meditations with trees and stuff brings you closer to the spirit. Yes, it's true. Yes, if your understanding of the Akashic record will improve if you will allow yourself to be aware of this morphic resonance. So, my dear friends, it's been 2 hours and 32 minutes. I love you dearly. The sun's coming up. I got to pee. Um, and I got to take a nap so I can go to the store. I'm out of some dog food and things. So I love you. Please have a safe Friday. And might who knows? I got up, at 4:30 in the morning and did this video for 2.5 hours. So who knows when I'll be on next? But stay frosty, my friends. And if Barry, if you're still out there, good morning to you, brother. And Miss Chloe and whoever else is still with me, I love you. Otherwise I wouldn't get up here in the middle of the night or the early morning and have a chat with Miss Chloe because she was thinking about me. But anyway, that morphic resonance thing. It's very interesting and to me a very real subject. So please be safe, and until next time, I continue to pray that each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings in the universe. And to me, see, that's true. The knowledge, the healing, and the wisdom that's in the universe. I want you to learn how to accept it and receive it. Yeah, you too, John. It's always good to see you down there with somebody from Texas. That's salute. Um, I've known a couple of people. Um, I don't know if they were from Texas but they had lived in Texas for a period of time. So, and one of them lived up in the Panhandle North, up, and I don't know where certain towns or anything. Anyway, he lived up there for like 10 years. But anyway, and we talked about stuff and this and that. But anyway, Texas. So, the Lone Star State. Well, if it's a Lone Star State, they need to find them a partner. There's an app for that. So, have a good Friday and a good weekend if I don't talk to you sooner. So, please be safe. And I do continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And I was blessed with better eyesight by having my cataracts removed, and I was able to sit here and see a turkey way up on the hill walk across the grass up there. So, thank you to my eye doctors. Thank you to the universe that they were good enough to be able to fix my cataracts, and thank you to the universe that I can accept this new eyesight and put drops in my eyes when I get done talking to you. That was a segue into my eye drops glowing. All right. I love you dearly. So please be safe. I will, until next time, cheers, my friends, and be safe.